Some more big news from Washington. Today, Mitch McConnell announced he's stepping down as the Senate Republican leader this November. McConnell said that it's time for the next generation of leadership. Then he looked around the Senate and realized the next generation is 75. He's like,
And Joe Biden is 181. And he bumps into furniture and falls down every flight of stairs he approaches. And his brain, she's a broke. She's a no good. I have a challenge for our corrupt news media. Corrupt as they are. Very, very corrupt. Talking to my pal Mike Opelka today. You know, from Catholic school when we were kids. Mike Opelka, my regular stunt double when I'm away from the radio studio, said today, hey, I wonder if any of the fake news media are going to cover the funeral of Laken Riley tomorrow, if they're going to cover it live like they did the funeral of George Floyd, a career criminal drug addict who died of heart failure while resisting arrest and is therefore a hero of the Democrat Party. And I got to say, Opelka, that's a great question. That is a great question. You'd think that because the funeral is tomorrow in Woodstock, Georgia, for the 22-year-old nursing student who had her head smashed, and did you hear that her skull was misshapen? The shape of her skull was destroyed by the illegal alien murderer. And Laken Riley, 22 years old with a brilliant future, wonderful person, everybody loved her, out for a run when one of Joe Biden's army of illegal alien criminals out of Venezuela, as so many of the illegal alien criminals are, because Nicolas Maduro emptied his prisons and probably his insane asylums, just like Fidel Castro did, leading to the Mariel boat lift and the Cuban crime wave. Now we have the Venezuelan vendetta, and the vendetta is being waged against us by the Democrat Party, which is waging war against civilization in the United States of America. They are not on our side. But it's a great question that Mike raises. Now, I went and took a look, and NBC carried the George Floyd funeral live on the network, not just on MSDNC, which carried it live, or on CNN, which carried the criminal junkie, resisting arrest, career felon George Floyd, who died of heart failure while resisting arrest and became a hero of the Democrat Party. I mean, Al Jazeera, because I looked it up, I have access to the internet here, and I didn't need federal government intervention to get access to the internet. Isn't that amazing? Al Jazeera's headline, "We will never forget," in quotation marks, George Floyd's funeral in pictures. And they've got Al Jazeera, that's the Arab news, global news enterprise, and they were covering it like it mattered to them. Family activists, the Reverend Al Sharpton, and the public pay tribute to 46-year-old black man whose death triggered anti-racism protests. Now, I got to tell you, this was in 2020, June of 2020. Approximately 35,000 African Americans have been murdered in the United States since June of 2020. Roughly 96% of those by other black people. Al Jazeera didn't report on any of those. And NBC News didn't send Lester Holt, and they did send Lester Holt, their anchor, who is African American, to cover this live. In fact, if you look it up, it's completely crazy. A horse-drawn carriage was brought in. A white hearse, horse-drawn, was brought in to bring George Floyd's body the last mile. This took place in Houston, the city from which George Floyd originated, and doubtless committed many crimes there before going to Minneapolis to commit many crimes there, and to be addicted, tragically and sadly, to fentanyl and methamphetamine, and had lots of THC in his system, and he died of heart failure, largely because of the drugs. In fact, one of the coroners, there were multiple autopsies, one of the coroners said that if they had found George Floyd at home in a reclining chair, dead that they would have determined it was a fatal fentanyl overdose. That's how much fentanyl he had in his system while he was kicking the police and resisting arrest and all this stuff. Honestly. So NBC Network carried it live. I can't see, but I bet if NBC and Lester Holt carried it live on the network, on the broadcast network, I'm guessing that CBS and ABC also carried it live. Just amazing. And during the George Floyd funeral, Al Sharpton attacked Donald Trump because Al Sharpton is a religious leader to the left.
You're sitting now trying to figure out how you going to stop the protest.
What?
Rather than how you going to stop the brutality.
You mean rioting? Stop shooting people.
You're scheming on how you can spin the story rather than you can achieve justice, wickedness in high places.
Where's Tawana Brawley?
You take rubber bullets and tear gas to clear out peaceful protesters.
That's a lie.
And
They're
then
rioters.
Take a Bible and walk in front of a church and use a church as a prop.
The one that the peaceful protesters set on fire. Your peaceful protesters set the Church of the Presidents on fire, St. John's Church, 1815 church, across from the White House. That's your peaceful protest. There were 180 federal officers injured in your peaceful protests at the White House. They burned the only building in Lafayette Park in front of the White House. They attacked the Reagan Center across the street. And the violence, and then this criminal, Al Sharpton, where's Tawana Brawley, says, you use rubber. They didn't use rubber bullets, I don't think. On peaceful they're rioters. They're violent criminals. And that forced the evacuation of the president and the first family from the White House to the bunker beneath the White House, which was made for nuclear war. And this was George Floyd's protest. And Mr. Articulate over here, with Gurgle. Do you think they're referring to Gurgle? I think you are Gurgle. And also they had Al Green. Al Green called for reconciliation at the funeral.
The Congressional Black Caucus is making a difference. But I believe there's one more thing that we ought to do to make a difference.
What?
We have got to have reconciliation. This country has not reconciled its differences with us. We survived slavery, but we didn't reconcile. We need a Department of Reconciliation.
Well, that's funny because the Republican Party had a plan for 40 acres and a mule, but the Democrats killed it. While they were counting black people as 3/5 of a person, the Democrats were, so they could get more political power. They haven't changed much in all these years, the Democrats, and you're all Democrats. That was, of course, Congressman Al Green, not the singer Al Green, no longer with us. Yeah, reconciliation. Well, sure, absolutely. I reconciled long ago. I was, not around for the Civil War. How about you guys? I don't live in the age of the Roman Empire, and I don't live in the 19th century. And you guys need to join us in the 21st century. Come on in. The water's fine. You people are out of your minds. But there it is. Now, in any case, I ask the question, will the networks be carrying the funeral of Laken Riley tomorrow? Will they? In Woodstock, Georgia? Is NBC News going to send their chief anchor down there, Lester Holt, to cover the funeral of 22-year-old Laken Riley, who was brutally and savagely murdered by an illegal alien from Venezuela, likely freed from a prison by their left-wing dictator, Nicolas Maduro? You guys are in bed with Nicolas Maduro. You guys. Honestly. So a great question. Will they be covering live? We're going to have rows of satellite trucks and reporters and anchormen at the George Floyd funeral, which was June 9th of 2020 in Houston, Texas. Again, they had aerial shots. They had helicopters flying over, following the horse-drawn carriage like he's John F. Kennedy, covering his funeral like it's a president of the United States for a career criminal junkie that died of a heart attack while resisting arrest and assaulting police. And the Democrats jailed the police officer. If you watch Minneapolis has fallen, you'll see that Derek Chauvin followed police training and police procedure to a T. The knee was between the shoulder blades, not in the neck. There was no asphyxiation. Died of heart failure because of the amount of drugs, narcotics coursing through his bloodstream. And they put him in prison, where a Democrat stabbed him 11 times a matter of weeks ago and nearly murdered him. The goal was to murder him, and the Democrats applauded the attempted murder of the police officer because the Democrats are criminally insane. Yes, remember George Floyd, the Al Sharpton, members of Congress, slavery, horse-drawn hearse, helicopters. But Laken Riley will be laid to rest tomorrow, and the news media is doing everything they can to not talk about it. In fact, we played a couple of sound bites yesterday, I think, of Manderson, Pooper, and who else was it, talking about how those terrible Republicans are politicizing the death of Laken Riley. How dare they, because murdered by an illegal alien, a perfectly solid citizen, 22-year-old young woman that everyone loved.
Republicans obviously seizing on this horrific tragedy at the University of Georgia. This girl, this nursing student, killed by an undocumented Venezuelan migrant.
Undocumented.
And they're seizing on this as an example of Biden's failure to protect the American people and to
How
secure
dare
the
they?
border.
How dare they? That was Fake Yapper. Fake Yapper? Yeah, Fake Yapper on CNN. And those darn Republicans. Now, the Democrats seized on the junkie criminal, George Floyd, dying and burned 400 cities, injured more than 2,000 police officers, murdered more than 24 people, burned more cars and more businesses than we can count, and you're still looting on an everyday basis years later because you got into the habit during the George Floyd era. To you, he's more important than Jesus Christ. But never mind that. So Fake Yapper, the Republicans seized on it. Really? Have we been burning and looting and attacking police and killing people? Remember retired police captain David Dorn, that they murdered and live streamed him dying on camera while he was choking to death? And the Democrats are looking forward to the satanic temple pastors getting into schools in Florida. The Democrat Party is unwell. They are sick. Sick people. Yes, they are. So that's my question. Will the media be carrying the funeral live tomorrow? I suspect not. That's what I guess. We don't have a ton of time, and we've got audio to get to and other stories to get to in the border. Joe Biden is going to the border at long last today, and Donald Trump is going to the border today, too. The White House announced Joe Biden was going to the border after Donald Trump announced he was going to the border. They announced it would be the same day, and then the media started lying to us about it. We don't really have time to go to a call to do justice to a call, but we got a lot yet to get to in this hour, our third hour, our final hour today. Yeah, that's right. George Floyd in his autopsy also tested positive for COVID. Out of communist China, with funding from Anthony Fauci and the U.S. taxpayer. Amazing stuff. Yeah, so we've got the border coming up. President Trump headed down there today. And then the White House announced, Biden's going down there the same day. But guess where Biden's going compared to where President Trump is going? There's a big difference. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. Bam, 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 bam. Yeah, I got some cringe. I got cringe on Pierre, and Biden going to the border, and he's not going to the right place on the border because everything is a lie. We live in the Soviet Union. They lie to us. We know they're lying to us. They know we know they're lying to us, but they keep lying to us. And who will carry the Laken Riley funeral live tomorrow? Will Lester Holt drop everything and fly in the Gulfstream jet down to Woodstock, Georgia to to anchor the funeral of a young woman murdered savagely by an illegal alien from Venezuela? I'll bet $1 that he doesn't. Because it doesn't racially divide the country the way the Democrats, the party of the KKK and Jim Crow, love to do. Let's grab a phone call. Let's go to Marty, calling from Columbia, Tennessee. Marty, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Mr. Plante, thanks for taking my call. I just had a comment when you said how Mr. Joe Biden saying how great the murdering world is. Maybe he's just confused and he's thinking he's in for government in Russia or China. Maybe that crime rate is really doing good. That's probably what he meant.
Well, I got to tell you, the FBI put out stats, and liberals have been parroting these stats for months now about how great the crime rate is in the United States. But I don't know about you, Marty, and I don't know about Columbia, Tennessee, but Washington, D.C., New York City, Chicago, everybody's living in a state of terror right now because of the crime.
No, I believe that. I'm from Illinois, and, we made a blessing move to come down to Tennessee. But I actually have a nickname for Joe. Now he's just Jackass Joe.
Jackass Joe. He, listen, we're lied to so constantly these days. And again, it's why I drew attention to this one piece buried deep in the bowels of the Washington Post today about the economy and inflation. Because yesterday their headline was, "The economy is booming." And that's a giant lie. The news media lies for the Democrat Party. It's what they do. And fake yapper there on CNN. Oh, the Republicans are politicizing the murder of a 22-year-old college student by an illegal alien gang member from Venezuela. Really? You of George Floyd riots, which you told us were peaceful or mostly peaceful? In fact, we still have T-shirts. We have T-shirts at the Chris Plante store, Marty, and coffee mugs. Mostly peaceful. So you can identify as mostly peaceful as well. And they're looting, burning, sacking, plundering the country from coast to coast. And these people have the temerity, fake yapper and Manderson pooper, to suggest that Republicans are politicizing what's going on in the United States when innocent young people are being murdered in Iowa and in Georgia, being dragged down the streets in New York City, Venezuelan gangs marrying up with Salvadoran gangs in MS-13. And the Democrats are just riding roughshod over this country. And the Venezuelan gangs released from prisons by the communist dictator there are allies of the Democrat Party. And if you mention it, then fake yapper and his corrupt allies attack you for mentioning it, for bringing it up. Thank you, Marty. And I'm also getting texts about the inflation rates. And honestly, inflation is even more than 18%, depending on what you're buying. We're being lied to a lot. Fox News headline, Court strikes down early voting law in Biden's home state. Fred Lucas writing the story. A court in President Joe Biden's home state, that'd be Delaware, determined a state law allowing 10 days of early voting and permanent absentee voting violated the Delaware state constitution. After coming into office in 2021, Biden regularly launched rhetorical bombs at Georgia and other states as being Jim Crow 2.0. In fact, he screwed it up and said it's Jim Eagle. He's such an idiot. He tries to say, first of all, every single Jim Crow law was a Democrat Party law. Every single one without exception. Jim Crow, not a real person, but had he been, he would have been a Democrat, and he still is today, biggest racists in the world. Joe Biden trying to say something clever and failing.
I'm convinced that we'll be able to stop this because it is the most pernicious thing. This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. I mean, this is gigantic.
Well, that's the opposite of what you intended to say. So it makes Jim Crow look bigger than Jim Crow. But you're trying to say that this is bigger than Jim Crow was, you Democrat who loved the exalted cyclops of the KKK, his fellow senator from West Virginia, Robert Byrd. But here it is. After coming into office, it's Jim Crow and Jim Eagle, and for requiring voter ID. They want to make sure nobody has an ID to vote because that makes our democracy more secure. Sure it does. That's the opposite of the truth. Lion Sacagawea. Georgia allows 3 weeks of early voting, but the Delaware Supreme Court Judge Mark H. Connor ruled in a 25-page opinion the enactments of the General Assembly challenged today are inconsistent with our Constitution and therefore cannot stand. They explain Article 5, Section 1 of the state constitution lays out when they will have elections, and it's not whenever the hell the Democrats want for as long as they want without IDs and mail-out ballots and ballot harvesting and drop boxes and surgical gloves. The Democrat Party is an incredibly corrupt party, and they would happily steal any election. That's the truth about them. Yes, sir. That's a fact. Also, another funny story, sort of, about a corrupt Democrat. In California, Gavin Newsom, they passed a $20 minimum wage in California, $20 minimum wage. And you work at a fast food place, $20 minimum wage. Prices go up on everybody. They destroy the world. Major Gavin Newsom donor benefiting from California $20 minimum wage exemption pushed by the governor. Turns out a major donor to Democrat California Governor Gavin Newsom and his many campaigns is expected to reap the benefit of an obscure exemption in the state's new $20 minimum wage regulation for fast food industry that will allow some of his restaurants to continue paying lower wages. See, Gavin Newsom, the governor, pushed for the exemption, which allows restaurants baking and selling bread as a standalone item to continue paying the current rate of $16 to its employees. That means that billionaire Greg Flynn, a longtime donor to Gavin Newsom, could save hundreds of thousands, nay, millions of dollars each year because he gets a special exemption to the law of the $20 minimum wage because they are apparently the only major restaurant chain fast food that would be covered in theory by the $20 minimum wage, but because they bake bread and sell bread as a standalone, they get an exemption from the corrupt Democrat governor, Gavin Newsom. Corruption comes in many forms. Basically, it's an organized crime syndicate, the Democrat Party. And they've got these crazy exemptions for, sourdough. Oh, you make sourdough bread? Well, only Panera makes sourdough bread. And they get an exemption because they gave money to Gavin Newsom. So Gavin Newsom is giving money to them. They are corrupt people. The Post-Millennial has another story. Gavin Newsom dismantles dams to protect salmon, destroys their spawning beds in the process, killing off the salmon that they had set out to save. Because Democrats are, what's the word? I can't say the word here. Impaired. The Kalmouth River is now full of destroyed salmon spawning beds and pollution, including decomposing algae, organic deposition, chemicals, and just amazing fine silt, which is killing the ecosystem because Gavin Newsom was going to make things better. Gavin Newsom backed the controversial proposal to remove 4 Klamath River hydroelectric dams along the California-Oregon border. Clean electricity thanks to water, not nuclear, not carbon burning, carbon producing. Now the same fish he swore to protect could be killed in the process. The dams have been breached on the claims that it would help the salmon migrate. But the Klamath River is now full of destroyed spawning salmon beds and pollution. So there it is. The Democrats are fixing things. They're making things better. All right, let's go to some audio here. Yesterday at the White House, cringe on Pierre, who looks like Raggedy Ann and she was dressed like a cup of orange sherbet yesterday. Did you see her? Was asked a question by Fox News' Jackie Heinrich, who does a great job at the White House, I've got to say, about his border visit today, because Joe Biden, now President Trump announced he's going to the U.S.-Mexico border. And hours later, the White House said, and Donald Trump announced that he'd be going today, right? And then the White House said, we're going to the border. When are you going? We're going the same day. We're going the same day. But they're such creeps, they're such liars and frauds that Joe Biden is going to Brownsville, Texas, which is on the very southern tip of Texas along the Gulf of Mexico and obviously bordering Mexico, where in the last 5 days, a total of 46 illegal aliens have crossed. President Trump is going to Eagle Pass, which is a combat zone. And in the last 5 days, more than 2,100 illegal aliens have passed. And of course, the Border Patrol is on Donald Trump's side and on and on. But going to Brownsville, where 46, not even 50 illegal aliens have crossed in the last 5 days. President Trump going to Eagle Pass, where more than 2,100 have passed in the last 5 days. Jackie Heinrich asking Cringe is her nickname. Hey, what's up with this border visit?
This administration has often criticized Republicans when they go to the border and hold similar press conferences and saying that they're doing publicity stunts and photo ops. So how is this any different?
They are turning this into a political stunt by listening to Donald Trump and saying that they need to kill it. This is what they've been doing and making it political.
Yeah, they're making, no, but wait a minute. The White House announced that Biden was going after Trump announced that he was going, and you announced that you're going on the same day that Trump announced he was going, and then you accuse him and them. They are making it political. What a hack. What the lie is so gigantic. How do these people sleep at night? I assume they use narcotics. A Democrat member of the House of Representatives, Robert Garcia, who came here as a child with his parents from a beep-hole country that they fled. Now he's a left-wing radical here to destroy America.
His visit tomorrow is nothing more than a massive political stunt to try to get reelected.
I wonder if you could speak to Republican claims that Biden's trip is also a political stunt.
Republicans that have been screaming and yelling and complaining and begging the president to go to the border now for months. And so for any of them to now say that it's political, I think, of course, is just totally another insane statement by any Republican.
See, the reporter, could you attack Republicans for me now? That was her. I'm going to tee up an attack on Republicans. Will you attack Republicans? Robert Garcia, anti-American, left-wing, radical extremist. And then he hurls these, this invective at Republicans more broadly. We need Republicans that are going to punch back at these SOBs and match their rhetoric pound for pound because they're such slime balls. The Speaker of the House is a good and kind of decent man who has been called various things lately, like a Christian nationalist, an extreme right-winger, and a communist by Joe Scarborough on MSDNC. A communist and a Putin bootlick communist. He's surrendered to the communists. This is the rhetoric that the Democrats and their media bootlicks, their sexual playthings in the media, this is the rhetoric they use. Here's the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. He was on Sean Hannity last night.
Joe Biden is catching them and releasing them into the country, and it's caused an absolute catastrophic effect, and it will continue, Sean, sadly. So we have to push. The president has the executive authority to fix it right now. He won't do it, Sean. He told me that he didn't have the authority to do that. I said, that's just simply not true. President Trump did it. Why can't you do it? He said, oh, Mexico doesn't want that.
Notice how he doesn't call the Democrats insane criminals, which honestly he should, but he plays by the Marquis of Queensberry rules. And the Republicans have been beaten up for decades now by these these looting arsonists that they call Democrats. And then they come out and they speak very politely and very nicely. And that's why Donald Trump, honestly, and I want in the replacing Mitch McConnell, I'd like to see Ted Cruz in the running there. I'd like to see somebody that punches back, not another milquetoast, polite Marquis of Queensberry rules. you know, I got to say, Mitch McConnell had his finest moment in all of his many years, his 40 years in the Senate. His finest moment was probably Donald Trump and the Supreme Court. Donald Trump, and he stuck it, he mumbled through it, of course, but he stuck it to the Democrats big time and used their own rule changes against them, which he warned them about ahead of time, because the corrupt Obama-Biden administration changed the rules on getting federal judges in. Mitch McConnell had a fine moment with the Supreme Court under Donald Trump. All right, let's go to Laura Reese with the Heritage Foundation, who was on the Fox News channel in the 5 a.m. hour this morning. I was watching for you, talking about President Trump and the border.
President Trump has gone to the border before he was president, while he was president, and after he's been president. He likes to go down there and talk to the agents who are on the ground and who know best as to what the situation is and to what they need. And he's going to have Eagle Pass behind him, where he can talk about how Texas is enforcing the law and doing the job that Joe Biden should be doing but isn't.
That is a fact, Jack. That is absolutely correct. Laura Rice with the Heritage Foundation.
Now contrast that with Joe Biden, who picked Brownsville, Texas, which has been an inactive area, as you just discussed. And he'll still go down there and say it is congressional MAGA extremist Republicans' fault for supposedly blocking a Senate bill that would not have secured the border. But really, for Biden, this is about money. He needs more money to continue to pay the sanctuary cities and to pay the non-governmental organizations that have carried this out for him.
Laura is absolutely right. He's going to go down there and MAGA extremists, the radicals, and Republicans need to return fire on a rhetorical level and point out that the really severely mentally limited communist moron in the White House should be dragged out of the White House in handcuffs. This would be in-kind rhetoric, right? Laura Reese.
This is a number one issue for Americans in poll after poll because it affects so many aspects of their lives, and particularly crime right now. We are being overrun with cases of illegal aliens who Biden has led into the country, who's been released into the country, and are committing heinous crimes, including the murder down on the University of Georgia campus. And yet it's day after day we're just getting more crimes like this. A 2-year-old killed, a 14-year-old raped, and on, because Biden has let millions into the country.
Millions of criminals, non-English speaking, unskilled, largely illiterate, violent criminals and gang members that the Democrats have welcomed into the United States to terrorize our country. And if I were Speaker of the House, that would be, kind of what I'd be saying about Joe Biden's visit to the border. And I'd be using the name Laken Riley over and over and over again, and I would be beating him over the head with it, and I would carry poster boards with her face on it, and I would shout them down for not carrying it live at NBC Network. And by the way, the Gallup polling organization finds that illegal immigration threat level, that's the turn of phrase that Gallup used, that 55% of us find that to be a critical issue, 31% more find it an important issue. That's 86% of us find that the illegal alien threat level is very important. Let's go to Lawrence. Oh, I can't. Look what I've done. I've run out the clock again. Holy smoke. They give me too much stuff. I need more time. That's why I'm going to go to Newsmax later on and do a television show there with more of the Democrat Party's craziness. Yeah, Lawrence Jones was down at the border asking a lot of people, largely Latino people living in Texas, Americans, right, about what they think about what's going on in Biden or Trump again. Also, it turns out, I looked into it, Biden, when he goes down to the border, he's actually going to the Mexican side. President Trump is going to the American side. Joe Biden's going to Mexico. He's going to stand there and hand out gift baskets and green cards to gang members that have just been released from prisons all over the world. Apparently, they're emptying prisons in other countries as well and sending them to the United States. And the Democrat Party is waving them in, giving them directions to your daughter's bedroom. Now, Fox News' Lawrence Jones went down to the border in Brownsville, Texas, and talked to some normal people, some Americans there, who are on our side and see what's going on. And again, this is Brownsville. This is not where it's really being overrun. And this is where Joe Biden is going.
Why do you think Joe Biden is coming here so late?
Nobody understands. Why is he coming now?
He's too late. He's too late.
I think it's a great disappointment to most of us who live and work here.
What do you think about him finally coming to the border?
About time.
Do you think he's actually going to fix the problem?
I don't think by coming here is going to fix the problem.
I'm not really expecting Joe Biden to do very much. You know,
Yeah, not expected to do very much. Talking to the nice residents, many of them Latino and bilingual and regular people.
Who was better for the border, Donald Trump or Joe Biden?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Mr. Trump was far, far better.
Definitely Donald Trump.
Oh, everybody knows Trump.
Without a doubt, Donald Trump.
Then CNN sent their Rosa Flores. You know how they always get black reporters to attack Clarence Thomas. And they sent Rosa Flores down to the border where Donald Trump is going, Eagle Pass, Texas, and spoke to this activist who's a radical left-wing, anti-American, hate-filled racist who goes by America Garcia. But America is spelled with a K.
Eagle Pass has gotten a lot of attention from around the country, and one of the concerns from people in this community is that not all of that attention is good. Some of the people here in this community that have been outspoken have gotten threats. Take a listen.
Lie.
Members of our community have had surprise visitors show up on their doorstep. Yes, they are bringing their hate into Eagle Pass. We're being invaded from the north. The people who are coming across the river, they're seeking asylum. The people who are coming to us from the north, they're bringing guns and they're bringing hate.
This is the lie that they're peddling at CNN with America with a K Garcia talking to Rosa Flores, who might as well be Soviet communists and honestly, Cuban Castroites. And America with a K is lying. And CNN is putting on the air, oh yeah, the people in Eagle Pass, hate-filled racists with guns are showing up on their doorsteps. On whose doorsteps? With guns and threatening them. And the hate of it all. Now, the Venezuelan gangs that the FBI is warning us about, pay no attention to that. It's the Americans that are the problem.